All right, we'll go ahead and call our Southern Nevada Enterprise Community Board to order, and we'll ask Ms. Foster to call roll.
Chair McCurdy.
Present.
Vice Chair Neal. Excused Member Goins-Brown. Present. Member Horsford. Thank you. Ms. Jones is present as Member Horsford's designee at the moment. Member Creer? I'm here. Member Monroe Moreno? Excused Member Steele?
Here.
Thank you. You have a quorum.
Thank you, and the agenda was properly noticed and posted, and we are in compliance with the Nevada Open Meeting Law.
Yes, thank you.
We'll now go on to item number 3, public comment. This is the first time set aside for public comment for individuals who wish to speak on items posted on the agenda. There will be another public commenting period where you can speak openly about items that are not on the agenda. Is there anyone in attendance who would like to speak on any items on the agenda? If so, now is your time to come forward. Seeing and hearing none, we'll now move on to item number 4, approval of the minutes. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
All right, we have a motion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All abstain? We have
Joining the meeting.
We have everyone in the affirmative with no abstentions. So motion is adopted. We'll now move on to item number 5. And for the record, Congressman Horsford is online.
For item 5, thank you, Chair. This is Karen Schnog.
If you can just read it in, read it in the agenda item.
This is item number 5, which is going to be a report by Karen Schnog, our management analyst number 2 for the City of Las Vegas regarding the summary budget status report for the Southern Nevada Community Project Fund.
The summary, this is Karen Schnog for the record. The summary budget total fund is $6,785.83.
Thank you so much. We'll now move on to item number 6 for discussion and possible action regarding the appointment of 2 representatives of the community to Southern Nevada Enterprise Community Board, also known as SNEC. The following participants in attendance are Dante Scott, I believe Felicia Hayes, Janice McNeill, John Stevens, Laverne Jackson. Let the record show that Michelle Taylor Abney has been stricken from the agenda. Also in attendance, we have Nathaniel Wall, Shaquila Elitz, and William Jernigan. Also, let it be reflected that each member or each applicant will have a limit of 2 minutes to speak, and we will call them in order as they are listed if they choose to speak. We will begin with Dante Scott. Good afternoon, and please state your name for the record.
Good afternoon. My name is Dante Scott.
And if you would like to speak briefly about, your application.
Absolutely.
Some history, qualifications, the whole nine.
Yes, so my name is Dante Scott. I'm a local business owner and real estate investor, and also a community activist in the city of Las Vegas, particularly on the west side of Las Vegas. I feel like I can bring insight, grassroots level experience of what it is to be a business owner and the hardships that that business owners go through in the city of Las Vegas. Also, I bring experience of dealing with boards and municipalities for sitting on the board for 2 years of the CDAC board. I understand how arduous the task is of coming together and making decisions, and I think I can bring a lot of strong insight and be a strong player on the board with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now call up Felicia Hayes. Welcome, and please state your name for the record.
My name is Felicia Hayes. Good afternoon, everyone, board members, and everyone that is present. I'm a native Las Vegan and '84 graduate of Western High School. My family has resided in Berkeley Square for over 50 years. I consider it my Mayberry.
And please, one more time, just state your name for the record.
I'm sorry, Felicia Hayes. I start all over with my speech here. Good afternoon, board members and everyone in attendance. I'm a native Las Vegan and 84 graduate of Western High School. My family has resided in Berkeley Square for over 50 years, and I consider it my Mayberry. I have a passion for bringing outside resources to my neighborhood and the historic West Side. I have been in education for over 20 years and an advocate for students with special needs. I would be honored to be an advocate for my community. I've never sat on a board before, so it would be a tedious endeavor for me to anyone to explain in detail, which I think we need to have things explained to us in layman terms that we understand for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now call Janice McNeill to the mic. Welcome, and when you get to the mic, please state your name for the record.
Good afternoon. I am Janice Mcneill. I am a 65-year born native of Las Vegas. Majority, at least 64 years in the West Las Vegas community. My family also resides and owns four homes in the historic Berkeley Square area, and I myself in the Highland Square area. I've raised 2 children. I've attended the West Side Elementary School and at least 4 of the original 6 elementary schools in West Las Vegas. I am recently retired, and what I can bring to this board, in my opinion, is an expert opinion. I have seen firsthand where this city has come from and absolutely aware of where it is now and things that need to be done to make sure that we get the recognition that we deserve as that diamond in the rough in the midst of this growing city of Las Vegas. I thank you for this opportunity and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you so much. Next, we'll hear from John Stevens. Welcome, and please state your name once you get to the mic. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is John Stevens III, and I'm here for the appointment to the board. I am a native. I was born and raised here in Las Vegas, Nevada. I have an associate's degree in social science, a bachelor's degree in political science, and I have a master's in political science. I'm also a 30-year retired employee of the Las Vegas Clark County Library District. I've worked for 17 years on and off for the Las Vegas Sentinel newspaper, and I've also written for a couple of months for the Black Image magazine. And what I bring to the board is that I've worked 26 years of my career in the library district at the Las Vegas Library, with mostly featured homeless, veterans, people with mental disabilities, the unemployed, and all the people in society that's just having a hard time and having a hard day. I would like to say more, but I only have 2 minutes, and I'm going to go with the old saying that sometimes less is more, and I believe that's what applies today. Thank you so kindly for your time and this opportunity. God bless you all.
Thank you so much. Next, we'll hear from Laverne Jackson. Welcome, and please state your name once you get to the mic.
Good afternoon. My name is Laverne Jackson. I'm a resident of North Las Vegas, and I have been in the community for about 5 years. My story is a bit different. I am the daughter of a teen parent. I was reared in very humble beginnings in a home with no running water, no electricity. I bathed in a tub behind a wood-burning stove. I spent my teenage years in a small rural community that was spotlighted on the Oprah Winfrey Show as the poorest community in the nation. I have lived and worked in public housing, and through it all, I was mentored by some outstanding adults who taught me that in spite of the challenges that I faced, it was important to be able to give back to others. And so I spent my time on telephones doing voting times, calling to see if people had rides to work and those type of things. I was the vice president of the NAACP Youth Council as a teen. I spent 4 years in the Army Nurse Corps after obtaining a bachelor's degree in nursing. I co-pastored a church in rural Georgia that was steeped in poverty and focused on providing health services and other social services to the community as well as to the people who came to the church. I obtained a PhD in human services, and I have stayed on the path of giving despite the challenges that I have faced in my life. I would like to serve on this committee to be able to continue to give and to share the knowledge that I have, and also to learn from others so I'll be better equipped to give even more. And thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much, and thank you for sharing. We will now hear from Nathaniel Wall. Please state your name for the record.
Nathaniel Waugh for the record. So I kind of grew up in the area. I went to middle school and high school, Charles I. West Middle School and ATEC for high school. As my day job, I work for the Nevada Homeless Alliance, so I'm working around homelessness and housing issues and kind of see the importance of economic development, particularly in this area. I've been fortunate enough I moved back into the community because of those redevelopment efforts right across the railroad tracks, but I did drive today because it was too hot to walk. And I have the opportunity to serve my community currently as a member of the Las Vegas Clark County Library District Board of Trustees. So I'm excited for the exciting things that we're doing in West Las Vegas around the West Las Vegas Library, as well as some other initiatives, and I would love to continue my service to the community by being a part of this board. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We'll now hear from Shaquila Elitz. Welcome, and state your name for the record.
Hi, my name is Tashika Lawson. I'm speaking on behalf of Shaquila Elitz. She's actually delayed on a flight right now. Can I do that?
Yes, that's acceptable.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Shaquila Elitz. I regret that I was not able to attend in person. I was attending the commencement ceremony of one of my nephews. He has graduated with 2 bachelor's degrees. My flight was canceled last night. However, you are all particularly responsible for not nominating committee members to the board within a timely manner. You should have done this for the first meeting of the year. Since 2007, your board has been entrusted with revitalizing this community, and ever since 2007, you have been failing this community miserably. I live in 89106, and I see every day the despair and destitution that you have failed to address adequately. This is why I would like to I believe I would make a good candidate as a member of the SNCC board. I would hold this board accountable for delivering on Senate Bill 352 and fulfilling its mission of creating a welcoming and prosperous community with community involvement. I will call out people who are on the board, but who have no intentions of doing anything besides taking care of their own interests. The board was developed for the benefit of the community. The elected officials or not, you have a responsibility to the people. If you cannot do the job, then leave. Leave it to us, the people. My name is Shaquila Elitz. May you get what you have earned. That is what was written.
Thank you for delivering the message. We will now hear from William Jernigan. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Darnell Jernigan, William Jernigan, A Solution Group, CDC. I'm a community activist in the community. I kind of pride myself on working with the stakeholders, existing business owners and existing land owners in maintaining their properties or enhancing their businesses and things in that area. I'm currently working on a workforce program where I'm working with stakeholders in the community to rehab their properties and train the youth on those properties. And of course, we've given over 30 jobs in that community at this moment as we speak. So I think that I'll be a good candidate for the board because we work similarly off of a whole community solution where we believe that the board members, community, and politicians should work together to enhance that area. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That concludes the applicants. Are there any discussion amongst the board? If not, I'll entertain a motion to accept and appoint 2 of the applicants.
Will we have a need for an alternate or just be the 2? And then if someone can't do their duty, then we'll appoint somebody else?
I don't know if we can do alternates, but yeah, I believe it's just a straight appointment.
Okay, thank you.
That
Mr.
would
Chairman,
be a
this
great
is
idea,
Stephen
Councilwoman, just because there
Horsford.
were so many excellent applicants.
I believe we can appoint the applicants as a pair. Is that okay, or does it have to be individual?
Let's just vote on them individually. Okay. Councilman?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion for Dante Scott to serve with us on the board.
All right.
I second Stephen Horsford.
We have a motion and second on Mr. Dante Scott. Are there any additional nominations? For the second app?
Well, we'll take it one at a time. So
Okay.
any further conversation, I think you say.
Yeah. Okay, is there any conversation on the nomination? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor? Aye.
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 All opposed? Any abstentions? Motion is adopted, and congratulations, Mr. Scott.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes. Congressman?
this is Stephen Horsford. I would move to appoint Janice Mcneill as the second candidate for consideration, and want to thank all those who submitted their names for consideration.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Can we do another name or just one name at a time?
We have a motion and second on the floor. We can take that to a vote, and then we can hear your nomination, Councilwoman.
Okay.
All in favor of Janice McNeil?
Aye.
All right. We have, sounds like we have a majority and aye. Any opposed?
Oppose?
We have one in opposition. Is there anyone abstain? All right, the motion is adopted. And congratulations to Janice McNeil. All right. We look forward to seeing you at our next meeting. You will be contacted by Ms. Karen Schnog with further details. Thank you to everyone who applied, and we look forward to working with you in the future as we continue to make our community better. We'll now move on to item number 7. We will hear items number 7 and 8 together. I do see Mr. Edmond in the audience, and we will actually hear item 8 first, and then we'll take a vote on item 7. And the item number 7 is going to be a discussion for possible action regarding the updated Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, also known as CEDS, to be approved by the Strategy Committee. And we'll also hear from Mr. John Edmond from the U.S. Economic Development Agency, also known as EDA, on the Southern Nevada Enterprise Community Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, also known as CEDS. Mr. Edmond, the floor is yours. Welcome, and thank you for being here.
Thank you. My name's John Edmond. I am EDA representative for Southern Nevada, and I have approved the CEDS for the Southern Nevada Enterprise Community, And so now the community, the board, can go to work and try and do some things in the community that it is set out to do. Of course, in reading out the information and what this says, the board and the members should be working on, and that is like I see that the people that came up here that wanted to be part of the board, the majority, or all of them actually, is people just like myself, either natives or been here practically their whole life, and want to see some good things happen within the communities. And that is the task that the board now will have to do. They have been given the go-ahead to do what they need to do in order to try to make a difference in the community.
Thank you so much. Are there any comments from the members of the board?
Mr. Chair, through you, I just want to say how happy I am that you're in this position, and also that you are willing to take on this role. I know it's something that you do not have to do, and you choose to do it, and I know you do it because you love our community, which is your community. You have done a lot here, and I know that I'll speak on behalf of myself and my entire team at the city that works with you, that you have been nothing short of amazing in helping us and guiding us to receive a number of grants, including the largest EDA grant in the history of our state of $6.9 million for our CSN Workforce Development Center. I know you're doing other work. I know in Boulder City and other parts of the region, so I just want to just thank you for that, and we look forward to continued collaborations and continue to build on more projects that we have planned. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. You know, one of the things I wanted to say is that in dealing with the federal government, any type of government, the people that work to try to make a difference, a lot of things can happen if the community work together. This particular body, in my opinion, may be the strongest body that Southern Nevada can have, because for one, you have all of your local representatives from elected officials all on one board. One of the things, and if they work together, I think you can get a lot done. I know the organization has been in existence, I think, since 2007. When I started asking questions about one of the things that I haven't really seen them do that much, or anything really, that now I think is a time that they really should, in the group, you got new faces on the board, hopefully that you can all seem to work together and come up with a strategy and a plan that everybody can approve, and let's see if we can get some things done. I'm here, I'm available. I want to see some stuff happen within the census tract that's available through the EDA, and I'm willing to work with the group in any way I can to try to make some things happen within Southern Nevada, and especially within the historic West Side area in North Las Vegas.
Senator Neal.
Thank you, Chair McCurdy. So I just want to talk about like next steps. So in the plan, one of the strategies that we had is like goal one. We talked about, we submitted the SEDS, got it approved, and now it's moving on to that planning piece. And then I'm assuming picking that project that we want to then ask for planning dollars for. That to me is the next step. I just want to ask, do you agree that that's potentially our next step for this year?
For this year?
Yeah, because we have it as a goal for 2022.
Okay. What exactly, what project do you have in mind?
Well, that's what I'm wondering. So you want, so the question that I'm asking is that for this board, we put some projects in the actual sets that we submitted. How would you like us to prioritize those projects to then send to you to then get planning money around those projects?
Well, you're probably not going to get any planning money, but
Okay.
if you are looking at a specific project type that's actually something that could actually create jobs and opportunities here in the community, you would have a better chance at getting, grant dollars for that. I think that one of the things when it comes to prioritizing that the board itself should maybe get together and come up with what they would consider to be the highest and best use, and that will not only be revitalizing parts of historic West Side or in North Las Vegas, but that's something that actually will make a significant difference here in the community. I think, one of the things that most likely ones of the people that got up here and spoke, they want to see something happen. They want to see some difference in the community. So do I. So whatever I can do, but I think a lot of it is going to be up to the committee themselves to try and come up with the project that would probably be the highest and best use for the community as a whole.
Thank you for that. So I appreciate that. So no planning money, pick a project, and then that potentially could be directly funded if we prove that it has the highest and best use and the greatest impact to change the narrative of this area.
Yes.
Got it.
Mr. Chair.
Councilwoman, please.
So with this, does it hurt or hinder us with other, like Nevada Partners, just funds that they are seeking as well? Would that help us, or would that hinder us in any way with this? With other projects that are going on, or other organizations that are seeking funding as well?
Say that again. I can't hardly hear you.
I'm saying
kind of speak up.
with like it's not either or? Okay.
So just make sure I'm hearing you right, Councilwoman. If there's an application for funds, grant funds through one project, it would not hinder the possibility of grant funds being allocated for a separate project?
No, it would not. No, it would not. Each project stands on its own merit.
Okay. Thank you. Okay.
Follow-up, Councilwoman? Sure. All right. Are there any other comments from either members on the board here in person or online? All right, seeing and hearing none, thank you so much for being with us, and we again appreciate all the work that you do, and we really look forward to working with you on this opportunity that we have.
Looking forward to working with the group.
Thank you. All right.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Karen had just had some clarification.
This is Karen Schnog for the record, just for people who may not be familiar with the terminology of the SEDS. It's the Community Economic Development Strategy, developed by community input and sets a strategy and plan for projects within the area and the district.
Thank you so much.
Also enables groups to apply and refer to the SED as the plan to apply for grants at the EDA and refer this to the SEDS plan. So it enables that application for the grants. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now hear any comments on item 7. I'll entertain a motion, being that we've already heard from Mr. Edmond.
First, to approve.
All right, we have a motion to approve. Second? All right, we have a motion and second by Member Steele. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Any abstentions? Motion is adopted. Thank you. We'll now move on to item number 9. Discussion for possible action regarding a request from the Southern Nevada Enterprise Community board support of the Learning Acceleration and Wraparound Services Grant, which was submitted to the Clark County School District by Nevada Partners. We'll hear from Dr. Brown from Nevada Partners at this time.
Good afternoon, council members. Wanted to come before the council back in 2013.
Dr. Brown, we know you. We just need you to say your name.
You need to say my name for the record. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
M. Christopher Brown II at Nevada Partners. Yes. Thank you. Council members, in 2013, this body made the decision to designate. Do you have the handout from Karen Schnapp? Okay, thank you. To designate Nevada Partners as the lead agency for the West Las Vegas Promise neighborhood. In response to COVID-19 and designated and identified learning losses across the state, particularly in Clark County, and especially within the West Las Vegas Promise neighborhood zip codes, CCSD led a grant related to the COVID-19 response funds for the opportunity to address learning loss and deficiencies across the school district. Nevada Partners had been engaged in a set of research and activity projects related to youth, workforce development, and housing, and found that this grant opportunity would allow us to expand our services by providing some additional learning enrichment and reinforcement. We began the process to conduct research and noticed that nationally, if you note on page 1, researchers had identified a summer slide across the country that all students experienced. That summer slide was problematized by the lack of in-person schooling during COVID-19, which created what they called now the COVID slide. They found in 2021 that the impact of the COVID slide was taking a particularly heavy toll on Black, Hispanic, and indigenous populations, as well as financially strapped families. They suggested that if learning reinforcement did not occur, that students within these populations would be 3 to 5 years off track or behind grade level with their peers. During the pandemic, Nevada Partners attempted to stabilize, as I said, with housing stability, food insecurity, and some mental health coping within the community. But we are limited in our resources. We're primarily grant funded, and so we did the best we could do. With this CCSD grant, we positioned and propositioned to leverage our existing resources and what we call our pillar partners to do what we call the West Las Vegas Growth Plan, gaining reinforcement opportunities with teaching and helping partners leverage academics in the neighborhood. So rather than each and every one of our pillar partners applying to CCSD for funding support for their tutoring, for their after-school project, or for their initiative, we would be able to fund those activities through the funds that were deposited at Nevada Partners for each of those pillar partners. Each of you know that we will be celebrating our 30th year this year. We have 30 years of dedicated service and proven impact, which we cite on page 2. I want to highlight very quickly the project, what Project Growth is, on page 3. The Nevada Department of Education identified 3 school improvement strategies that could help us get across what was the summer slide, but we believe that this would also help with the COVID slide. And so in the growth plan, we propose 6 initiatives: after-school tutoring and a summer academy, academic interventions in reading, math, writing, and science, the administration of valid and reliable formative and summative assessments, parent and family engagement, including adult education classes for workforce alignment, wraparound services, and teacher professional development.
These align to the federal statute in U.S. Code 20, Section 7801. We lay out the tutoring timeline, what kind of tutoring. We lay out the summer literacy programs with our initiatives beginning at a pilot level with Matt Kelly, Rainbow Dreams, and West Prep, and then scaling up in the subsequent 2 years. We lay out our professional development program, which would be led in tandem with Nevada State College, our parent and family engagement, as well as workforce support. The special thing that I think is important to add is that we have a tradition of what we call care coordination, or wraparound services for social support. All of the students would be subject to care coordination, and we would bring additional care coordinators to make sure that there was a case management approach for the students on the west side. Our proposed ask to CCSD for a 3-year initiative was $5.9 million, which is just under $2 million annually. And I'll be happy to answer any questions about our submission.
Thank you so much, Dr. Brown. Are there any questions from any member of the board, either in person or on the phone? All right, seeing and hearing none.
Well,
go ahead, Congressman.
Mr. Chairman, I don't have a question. I want to first commend Senator Dina Neal for her leadership in helping to advocate a portion of this grant submission for one of our highest need student populations, that's Matt Kelly, and also to the pillar partners under the Promise Neighborhood who have been working for several years on identifying strategies that can improve student academic achievement and success. The funding that the school district is allocating is from funding that was approved under the American Rescue Plan and awarded directly to our school districts. More than $1 billion of funding is approved from the American Rescue Plan to our Nevada school districts. And so to be able to have an initiative that specifically addresses the needs of students in the historic West Side, I think is imperative. Another key provision in the American Rescue Plan was a requirement to address equity, which means you direct the funding to those who are most in need. And when it comes to education, the students and parents and teachers within the historic West Side are among some of the highest needs. So I would fully endorse the proposal that has been made on behalf of the Promise Neighborhood Initiative, and would encourage the board, the Southern Nevada Enterprise Community Board, to, reinforce its support as a school district who ultimately has to decide the allocation of these funds. That this is a proposal that warrants support and is very meritorious. So I want to commend Dr. Brown and the team members at Nevada Partners. I will disclose for the record, I am a board member on Nevada Partners. It's non-paid. I have no financial interest whatsoever. This is about meeting the needs of my constituents and the people of the historic West Side. So I would encourage this board to do whatever it can to make sure that these funds get approved for our community and other communities that are in need throughout Southern Nevada. I yield back.
Senator Neal.
Thank you, Chair McCurdy. I just want to say I commend you guys for the work. I mean, I was involved, right? But at the end of the day, it was a heavy lift. I want to give a shout out to Lizette, who got a fever, was sick, and still came back every day to figure out how to continue to write this. And it shows our passion and commitment to overcome all barriers. And I know that we're going to continue the momentum, and we're going to do our best effort to overcome the barriers that are going on in West Las Vegas.
I just want to thank our vice chair for all the work that she has been doing in collaboration to ensure that we are hitting the marks. And the purpose of this item is to not only gain understanding of the services that are requested within the grant, but is also intended for us to direct staff to write a letter of strong support of this board for your grant application, so that we can make sure that we are servicing the needs of our entire community. So with that being said, I'll entertain a motion.
Chair, Karen Schnock, for the record, I just wanted to indicate that the letter will be on the backup for the agenda online, so that if anybody wants to read it, it's available. There's also a copy up here. What was that? Okay. And you'll need to sign the letter once you vote.
I will sign the letter.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, and thank you, Dr. Brown, for all the work that you do. Is there a motion on the floor?
I'll make the first motion to approve.
All right, we have a motion to approve.
A second.
A second by Member Steele. Are there any comments from members of the board? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? The motion is adopted unanimously. All right, we'll now move on to item number 10, where we have a presentation by Kathy Thomas, the Director of Community Services, and Dr. Tammy Milich, Director of Youth Development and Social Innovation of the City of Las Vegas, regarding infill housing in the historic West Side and reimagining James Gay Park. Welcome and thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Kathy Thomas, Director for the Office of Community Services, and I'll let my colleagues introduce themselves.
Dr. Tammy Milich, Director of Youth Development and Social Innovation, City of Las Vegas.
Eric Singman, City of Las Vegas Project Architect.
Thank you. Good afternoon. We are here today to give updates on some key projects that are happening, specifically as we reimagine what's happening in James Gay Park, which is on the historic West Side. We'll go through several project updates and then entertain questions if anyone has them. We'll kick off with our urban farm and containers.
Thank you. So again, Dr. Tammy Milich for the record. This is a phased approach, the plan for James Gay Park reimagined. It is contained in the larger 100 plan document, and as well as one of our catalytic investment opportunities as part of our phase 1 approach. That parcel of James Gay Park has multiple different assets that will be encompassing the area once it is complete. The phase 1 approach of this is the urban farms, which have been funded through a grant. Thank you to MGM International that funded the creation of the urban farms, as well as operations costs for year 1. At the end of that, the city will be looking for a partner to come in and take over operations of the farming. So let's talk about our urban farm containers. Go ahead.
Yes, good afternoon. Again, this is Eric Singman, Project Architect. And so I'm going to go through the current scheduling milestones. So the first, the estimated dates that we have are the grow container and the site improvement drawings are currently in review by Building and Safety. The project was approved by the City of Las Vegas Planning Commission on April 12th. The Las Vegas Valley Water District approved the project on May 9th. And then we have a tentative date to receive the building permit during this week, May 16th. After that, we're going to go into the bidding phase. That phase will start around May 23rd. It'll be a 45-day bidding phase. Then we'll be moving into a construction phase, which will last about 60 days. It'll start July 5th. And then the grow containers will arrive on site September 6th, the week of September 6th. So here you can see the site. It's the James Gay Park site. The rectangle there in dashed red is where the grow containers will be. They currently will replace the site of the old skate park that was there. Moving on, the site improvements, pardon me, moving on, the site improvements will be basically the area that you see there in gray will be demolished. It's about 2,500 square feet of concrete that will need to be demolished. Then we'll be running new sewer lines from B Street to the grow containers. We'll be constructing a new elevated concrete slab with new handicap ramp and stairs as well. We'll have 4 new site light poles that we'll be using for exiting and for site security. Then we'll be installing a new backflow preventer, providing infrastructure to both of the grow containers by installing new concrete sidewalks, and then we'll also have some Wi-Fi service that will be installed for the grow containers so that the sensors inside the grow containers can be read. Here you see the floor plan. The floor plan of the grow containers is basically on the outer walls. They're going to have the grow lights, which are like the red and blue spectrum lights for growing the vegetables. In the center, you have movable grow walls, which are similar to the type of like reading stacks you see in a library. You can turn them and move them using a dial. And then the last part there, you can see on the lower right is where the workstation is, where the grow vegetables will be harvested. Here you can see a rendering from the northwest. The rendering illustrates where the new light poles will be put, where the new handicap ramp and guardrails will be placed, and essentially that's kind of what the finished product will look like. So this is the grow containers. This is the inside of the grow containers. The picture shows where the grow container walls are shown there, where that you can move them left and right using a dial. That's basically where the vertical plant material will be grown. And then onto the left side, you can see the workstation where some of the vegetables can be started, and then from there they'll move on to the grow container walls. So here's a picture of the LED lights that are on the outer walls of the grow containers. They're color balanced and they maximize the growth of the vegetables inside. The last slide I'm showing here is the workstation. Typically, this is where the vegetables will start their journey before they start getting rooted and then put into the grow container walls themselves.
So in order to start this project, my colleague Kathy and I listened to several vendors about vertical farming and what they could offer in the Las Vegas community. We went with a vendor, Freight Farms, that has been successful in temperatures as hot as Dubai, and also has been successful with rooted and vining vegetables, and not just microgreens and leafy greens, which is more typical or traditional for this type of hydroponic farming. So these urban farms, once they arrive, each farm is a freight train car size, will produce 3.5 acres worth of produce, and can turn every 30 days, depending on what we grow in them. So a pretty significant, it's like farming on steroids, think of it that way. To Mr. Singman's point, the city's been doing a lot of foundational site prep work to make sure that the produce in there is protected, has adequate power and networking ability to run the software that helps monitor and manage the growth in the containers. The plan is for to reach out to casinos. MGM has already committed that they will pay market rate for produce, allowing us to then offer the balance of the produce to the next project that we're going to talk about about below market rates. And so the eventual plan is to use the produce along with other food items to stand up a cooperative grocery store. The city received a Local Foods, Local Places grant. It's a technical advisory grant to work with the faith-based leaders in the community that had an interest to come partner and look at building capacity to create a board to set up a cooperative grocery store. We did submit an EDA grant for that project. We have not heard the final word yet, but we are continuing to look for funding opportunities so that the faith leaders can operate a true full-service community grocery store that will also benefit from the fresh produce grown in the vertical farm grow containers. The final project on the James Gay lot will be working with a private investor, still looking for that perfect person or company to come set up a multi-use facility with workforce and affordable housing, as well as potentially some interior vertical farming and some retail space. And then kind of tying it all together in two ways. One is where Jackson Avenue ends at the park, to create a gateway space that allows an opportunity for the community to come do farmers markets, jazz in the park, et cetera, to really activate that space in a community way. And then the final thing is working with James Gay's family to honor him in a much greater way in this space. So talking now about how we do that and share his story, because his story plays into a lot of the future work, although it played into the past of James Gay. He was such a multifaceted individual that it also plays into the future work that will be happening at James Gay Park. And now, moving on to housing.
I think that there are questions on the board.
Stop there
yeah,
before we
and
go
then
on?
we'll get to
Sure.
housing. Vice Chair Neal?
Thank you, Chair. So just a couple of questions. Super cool. Very interesting. I see a lot of expansion of the sewer line. So are the sewer fees built into this project? Will there be expanded sewer fees? Or that's not going to be touched?
So the sewer fees, we haven't gotten the cost of the sewer fees yet, but it will be part of the project.
So when you say part of the project, it's built into the grant? So will the cost be allocated to whom?
The operational costs for the containers was included in the grant for the first 2 years.
And then in third, fourth, and fifth year?
We'll be looking for a partner to come in and take over operations.
And then for the architect, it's an old area, so are you concerned about any old pipelines? What kind of diagnosis did you do on the pipelines and being able to expand?
Yes, so the civil engineer that I worked with in-house has investigated thoroughly all the pipelines and verified that the sewer lines are in good order.
Okay. And then for the retail space, what's envisioned for the retail space that's compatible?
So we are, as I said, still looking for an operator. We have not finalized, but definitely that will be a community process once we narrow it down to go out into the community and get an idea or better pulse on what is needed and what might thrive in this space and be compatible with community needs.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from members of the board? All right, on the housing.
Thank you. They're going to bring up a slide that has a map of 3 parcels. So as many of you know, the city of Las Vegas owns some vacant lots on the historic west side that are ripe for redevelopment. Many of them are initially zoned for single-family housing. We recognize this is an opportunity, though, to address a broad range of housing needs by encouraging the development of different housing types. Rather than put the whole portfolio out as a single request for proposals, we are grouping some of the available parcels into smaller units so that we can give small and medium-sized developers and contractors an opportunity to compete to help redevelop the historic west side. The first RFP dropped May 9th, and the 3 parcels that are included in that particular RFP are at Van Buren. There are 2 at Van Buren and 1 up at Casper. And the reason we are grouping them this way is because we want to keep the total value of the lots at a level, again, to encourage and support small and medium-sized entities to compete to do a development. The RFP, which is in your backup, allows for a pretty broad range of housing types, housing products. It all must be affordable according to HUD guidelines. And so we will entertain anything from cottages, or what is commonly called tiny homes, all the way up to a single-family home available for a first-time home buyer at 80 to 120% of area median income. We will release subsequent RFPs as we work with the community. We've committed to doing some capacity building, so we've had a couple of workshops even before the RFP was posted, so that anyone who was interested, developers, community members, could come in, ask questions about the process, ask questions about what types of resources the city is going to make available to support redevelopment in this area, and very importantly, to encourage folks to meet other interested parties and form development teams literally in the workshop. So if you need general contractors or architects or engineers, there were qualified people right in the room and from the community who could support that. The due date for the submission of this first RFP is June 30th. We wanted to give adequate time for smaller players to put together their development team and propose something. And so there is a rubric that is weighted very heavily towards alignment with the 100 plan. It gives points for having a diversity, equity, and inclusion plan in the hiring, and it must align with the city's existing hiring and placement, which requires 30% local hire and a 15% minority, woman, and veteran-owned preference, so that we can ensure there's diversity in the teams that get put together. We didn't want to put them all out at once, all the RFPs, because this is iterative. We want to hear feedback from the community, the traditional development community, as well as residents of the historic West Side, about the way this process is moving forward. Is it achieving the equity and inclusion goals that we have set out? Is it delivering the potential for high-quality, affordable housing? And does it support our goal of development without displacement? Our goal is really that folks in the community help build it, and folks in the community get first opportunity to live in it and benefit from it. There should be probably another half dozen or so of these coming out over the course of the year. Each of them will have 3 to 4 developable parcels in them, and we will send written reports to update you as that moves forward. This definitely aligns with one of the core tenets that's in the 100 plan, which is no more vacant lots. And so if you're an owner of a vacant lot, you ought to commit to redeveloping that. And so the city is priming the pump, so to speak. We also hope this will encourage private owners and private developers to support the redevelopment and housing infill efforts. And I'll stop there before I go to the next one to see if there are any questions.
Vice Chair Neal.
Thank you, Chair. I saw this when the RFP dropped. Super excited about you guys venturing into this. Just a couple of questions on, well, the tiny homes conversation. Are you thinking, like, let's say a developer comes in and you're starting here with these 3 lots, and they say, well, I want tiny homes in all 3. Are you going to say no, or are you going to say it needs to be mixed? Because tiny homes, I mean, I voted against it in the legislature for clear reasons, right? And I don't see it as quality housing. And then what happened in Reno is they're literally charging the same amount as if it was a full home. Mm-hmm. And so you don't actually get the benefit of what is perceived quality because the size of it.
Indeed. So we have told proposers that they can propose a range of housing types or models. So they could do the same thing on all 3 parcels or do different things on all 3 parcels. They can't bid on each parcel separately. It is a package deal, so whoever proposes anything is going to have to propose something to address all 3. In terms of cottages, actually, well, we call them cottages because tiny homes actually does conjure up some things that aren't typical housing that you would like to see. But there actually are some really small homes, 600 to 800 square feet, that already exist on the historic West Side. So something that aligns with some of the product that is already there but upgrades it would be acceptable. It would also be acceptable to put a single-family home on each one of these lots. And so we're asking the developers to tell us what they can do that is high quality and that ensures that they are hiring from 89106 and using local folks to do this work. So it could be 3D printed homes using different building materials. It could be a duplex. It could be a 2-story home. Like, there are a wide range of options. We want people to suggest something that is high quality and maintains the affordability.
And so, super curious about because I wasn't able to attend, I was just gonna sit in, it's not like I'm a developer, but the capital stack?
Yeah.
How is that going to be set up? I had the awesome opportunity to get put on that private activity bond council group. It was the best committee ever. And so now I know that, it's a good tool, right? Because I believe you guys have, this isn't cash, and I want to be clear. I think it's about 36 million that you guys have in your private activity bond allocation. It's not cash, but it can be leveraged with your home.
Yes.
It can be leveraged with other things to build a stack. So how will it come into play here?
So for developments this small, the private activity bond is a heavy tool. It's typically something you want to use if you're doing projects that have 20 units or 200 units, right? It's a complicated financing tool. The capital stack will depend on the product or the project. So we did explain to everyone that they are eligible to apply for home dollars. We may be putting redevelopment agency set aside dollars. So it'll depend on actually what they build. If they build a single family home, then I can't use the Investment Act dollars because those are really for multifamily. But we may be able to work on some down payment assistance programs. So we haven't taken any funding source off the table. We have said, tell us what your plans are, what your project looks like, and then we can help you identify the eligible funding sources, and in some cases, help you apply or refine your application so that it is more competitive.
Are you taking, so in your redevelopment, right, so are you taking this 9% that used to be set as, there was 18, but then there's 9. So are you taking the 9% that's in your redevelopment and then applying it here? And then how much is in that 9% that would be dedicated to this?
So we haven't earmarked any of that 9% RDA housing set aside exclusively for this work. What we're saying is it's available for this work if it is a viable project. So we get about $2 million a year in that set aside. And we have done a whole range of things, acquisition rehab, we have done homeless transitional, we've done a whole range of things with that particular money because of its flexibility, as long as there's housing on the other end of it. So we're waiting to see what the projects are that come back. This is in a redevelopment area, and so it is eligible for those dollars.
Awesome. And then for the home fund, are you going to keep with the same down payment assistance restrictions that are currently, typically it's that, 15-year payoff or 20-year payoff, but it requires them to stay in the home, or are you going to adjust those restrictions at all?
So for the home dollars, it will most likely be a 15-year affordability period. For down payment assistance, it will be 5 years.
Final question, Chair. Clearly, I'm in a good mood, right? So final question. So for the developer and the assignees, right? So typically, there's this chain of humans who are involved in the work. Are they also going to be tied to this local hiring piece for all assignees? Typically, that's been one of the, probably since 2013, has been, an area of watchdogging around that bill and how it's actually used with the bona fide residents. And then the common statement has been, well, there are not enough bona fide residents in order to locally hire. That's been the glitch. And so I'm wondering, because there was this, and I'm asking this question because I had this bill in 2013 that allowed for comparable experience, because I was trying to deal with that historical arguments that the community had been making about, well, I don't have exact. So giving the flexibility for the comparable experience so that they could at least get a foot in the door. And I haven't really seen that one activated in the way that it probably should, but I wanted to bring that back up because it's still in law, no one reversed it, and that it's a tool, or I expected it to be used as a tool to try to broaden the door for our community to get into the work.
Yes, thank you, Vice Chair, through you, Mr. Chair. We certainly want to look at alternative ways to qualify, comparable alternative ways to qualify. The RFP does not specifically identify that, though, but we can certainly circle back. And this is the reason we want to do an iterative process so that we can improve as we move forward. The 30% local hire is non-negotiable. That's actually a requirement that the Las Vegas City Council put on our work. And so if you create 9 new jobs in this project, 3 of them have to be local hire. So that isn't, unless I go back to City Council, I don't have latitude to waive that. The 15% veteran, women, minorities, small business is a goal. And the developers can come back and demonstrate that they have done good faith efforts. They've done the right kind of outreach. They've worked with the chambers. Whatever they do to ensure that they can identify those subcontractors who are veteran, women, minority-owned businesses. And so they can come back and say, here are all the 15 things I did to find a veteran-owned business. I couldn't find one. We know that means they haven't really looked, but we're going to work with them to fulfill that. That is a goal, that they can come back and demonstrate that despite good faith efforts, they were not able to achieve it. The 30% local hire was actually approved by the City Council as the standard.
And then just final question, Chair. Are we going to be able to spread the outreach to multiple firms that may have different community relationships? And I'm saying this because not to throw dirt on any existing outreach company, but typically the argument has been, if you hold something at 3 o'clock, right, and I'm at work or I'm somewhere else, that's not a feasible time for someone to be present, but yet there's the outreach check box, but that's not real outreach, right? Because who could attend couldn't. And so sometimes, you know, the same relationships are replayed, but we get the same exact outcome. And so maybe there's more of a need to get other marketing tools or humans in play so that you have that diversity and you can say, well, there were, you know, 3 people who took a bite of this, whatever the RFP would be for, you know, $300,000 to go do this, and they all were able to show they checked the box in a meaningful way, and it wasn't done in the same way. Because this is a unique opportunity that you guys are bringing.
You're right on point with this. We have, so some of the submissions around particularly the diversity, equity, and inclusion plan, they can't, you know, go on Google and cut and paste and just plop something in. They really have to demonstrate what they've done to be equitable and inclusive. And so the same old thing will get us the same old results. We're looking for people to be innovative and to really work in the community. Fortunately, we had over 85 people attend these workshops. Because we held them to your point, we held them at different times and on different days, and we would expect any developers to do the same, different times, different days, maybe work with our outreach team to say, who are you, who did you speak with in the community, so that they all have an opportunity to share the information. It's also why we didn't want to put it out in one big portfolio. We want to learn as we go, and we believe that once people are aware of this opportunity, they will start forming their own collaboratives that are diverse, that are inclusive, and that they will be more competitive when they come in to apply because they've already done all the things that we've asked people to do in this RFP.
We have a question or comment from Member Steele, and I would just ask, is it possible for you to blow up this map so that we can see or if you can just tell us how large those parcels are, that would be just great.
The parcels are basically the size for a single-family home. I'll get the actual
Like
dimensions for you.
14,000 square feet, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay. Member Steele.
Thank you, Chair. Just all the conversation regarding the local hires just made me think of one point, and this is kind of related to the initiative or the plan for the James Gay Park. And so just had 2 quick questions. One, what's the expected time frame for engaging the operator? And then 2, do you believe there's a way to require the operator to train a team or an organization to take over operations? So when just listening to the plan, my fear would be that there's in 2 years when there's no operator, that it sits vacant. And so to create a smooth transition, similar to what the discussion is regarding the housing and using a local team, I feel if there's an organization or individuals in the community that are primed to take over operations, then that can create a smooth transfer.
Thank you. So we have thought about this. We're working with a consultant, a subject matter expert from UNR's Cooperative Extension. We have already started working with Vertical Harvest and their Freight Farms and their training program. We are currently flying jobs right now for urban farmers. Once we get those positions filled, we are being told the training is very reasonable and understandable, even if you don't have an agricultural background. But we're waiting to see, right? The proof is to be seen. Once we see how this goes and how they stand up and operate, that will better equip us to move. But we are holding stakeholder meetings every month with other community gardening collaboratives, so that this isn't something that hits and all of a sudden now we have nobody ready to take it over. In the event we couldn't find an operator, I would continue to seek funding through my city resources to keep it going until we found an operator. The intent is not to walk away and cross our fingers and hope it continues to operate. Our city leadership is invested in this, and they are looking at this as a model to replicate in other areas of the community. So we would keep it operational until we found an operator.
And just as a follow-up, when do you plan to engage the operator?
We plan to engage the operator after we get the containers here and operating. Based on the timeline that Eric shared, we believe that will be in May, and then the first crop, if we get those operational by the end of May, our first crop should be June. But it the timeline has been a little bit wiggly. Once the timeline gets more firm, then we will start actively seeking an operator. The farming containers were ready in April, and it was initially our thought that we would have them on the ground by April 30th, and we would be having a salad right now. However, the infrastructure had to be resolved, and so delayed that salad. So hopefully by your next SNEC meeting, we can bring salad, and you can see the fruits of our labor. But yes, once we get them here and operating, then we will start looking for an operator to come in long term.
Chairman McCurdy, Kathy Thomas for the record. So you wanted to know the size of the parcels?
Yeah.
The one at Casper Avenue is 0.17 acres. The parcel at 600 Van Buren is 0.18 acres. And the second parcel on Van Buren is 0.15.
Thank you.
It's on the bottom of this, which is in your backup, or should be in your backup.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you. Let's bring up the local foods, local places slide, if we can. So again, Kathy Thomas, for the record. Oh, good. Here's we'll get there. The parcels that I just gave you the sizes for are at the bottom of this particular picture. That's the Van Buren one. So we'll move over to local foods, local places. One of the issues that clearly got identified in the community was around food insecurity and the absence of a full-service grocery store. Many of you know that several grocery stores have been open, tried, failed, and they were traditional for-profit models. We still need a full-service grocery store in the community that is clean and provides a range of products and services. And so we began, actually a year ago, having a conversation with the community. It was a little slow because of COVID, and we did some things remotely or virtually, a capacity building workshop called Living Stones, where we had about 45 participants. And at the end of that, we said, who wants to work on a cooperative grocery store? That's a model where the members own and operate the grocery store. Several folks raised their hands, and as it turns out, it was members, leaders from our community of faith. Many of the churches have food pantries and clothing closets because they're trying to address the needs, and they wanted to address them comprehensively and do so in a way that actually throws off jobs. So we began working to identify some technical support to help them move from a food pantry that might be open, mine's open Tuesday from noon to 12, noon to 2, and yours is open on Saturday from 3 to 4, right? From that kind of a model to an integrated service delivery model. We applied to the EPA. Yes, the Environmental Protection Agency has a food insecurity arm, and we received some technical assistance from a program called Local Foods, Local Places. And the EPA assigned folks to work with the faith leaders and some city staff to think through what's required to stand up a cooperative grocery store. The other element is to have a CDC, a Community Development Corporation, that could own and operate this. Again, our model as the city is, we have dollars for capital, we want to push those dollars to the community and build the thing, whatever the thing is, and then get out of the way and let the community operate it. Out of our work with Local Foods, Local Places, a community action plan has been developed so that we can move forward to think through ways to, I'm going to flip through to this chart about the work, where we started with forming a steering committee as part of our planning process and defining our goals and objectives, then get out in the community, literally be on the ground and see what's going on. Of course, the faith leaders already knew that, and so they were ready to get to the part where we are creating a plan so we can move forward. And now we're ready to act and taking the steering committee from a planning body to an actual implementation body with a set of goals. So goal 1 is connect the vision for a cooperatively owned market in the historic West Side, and you'll see all the action steps there. The group is working with Enterprise, a second technical assistance group, to move forward on the action steps. Goal 2 was to establish the foundations for urban agriculture to anchor the neighborhood. So you heard Tammy or Dr. Mallich speak earlier, not only about the grow containers, but about a larger vertical structure that can push out fresh produce, anything that vines or roots, to feed not only our cooperative grocery store, but to market to gaming and hospitality interests. And the third goal was to build the community's capacity to maintain its local food economy. So moving from food pantries or smaller community gardens to a whole network that includes food pantries, includes community gardens, includes grow containers, includes an urban farm and a full-service grocery store, so that the whole continuum of a food delivery system exists on the historic West Side. And so we meet monthly with both Enterprise and the Local Foods, Local Places, and you'll see as we go through this, what does the plan addresses, what does success look like? I won't go through all of it word for word, but each goal identifies measures of success. It identifies who the lead is or who the catalytic leadership should be, meaning this conversation isn't just with the faith leaders, but who else in the community. So I'm not trying to name drop, but folks who have run community gardens, people who have run grocery stores that may have closed, folks who have actively been engaged in food service industries, to expand the conversation and what is their role in doing this work, and then who needs to support this from city or other private sector partners. So each goal and action item covers measures of success and the roles that each individual needs to play to move this project forward. And I will stop there because I want to respect everyone's time. What we do is commit to education, right? So cooperative economics is nothing new, but it's something that we have not practiced consistently. So we have a number of appendices where we give folks stuff to read, encourage them to share that with the community. We have a flyer, and I don't know if someone can bring that flyer up, that the churches are now using to share with their congregations to talk about the work thus far. I will stop there and entertain questions, Mr. Chairman.
Vice Chair Neal.
Thank you, Chair. So I only have one question. The capacity and sustainability. So these are players now, may not be players 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 4 years from now. So was there any kind of sustainability training, capacity building that came into play? Because we always have wonderful ideas, and then the humans who are supposed to be a part of it either disband, fight.
Thank you for that question. Kathy Thomas, for the record. So our current work with capacity building with Enterprise Community, so Schwab Bank is paying Enterprise to come help us build that kind of infrastructure so that the Community Development Corporation not only has organizing documents like bylaws, but they have governance documents. How do we vote somebody out of here? Who gets to vote, right? So that they have strong governance documents that are culturally responsive to this context. Because we don't want to cut and paste off of Google. We want something that is unique to the historic West Side and unique to the history, celebrates that history, but doesn't get sidetracked by the parts of the history that have kind of kept us stuck. So that capacity building is happening now. We have some workshops coming up with Enterprise coming in from Washington, D.C., now that they can travel. Again, COVID slowed a lot of this work down. Now our consultants can travel and come on site to work with our teams on site so that it's not just on paper, but they're actually operating structures and people in roles in a decision-making process about who gets to be in that role so that we can pass the baton when necessary or ask people to step aside when progress is being kind of hindered.
Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions from the members? All right, thank you so much. All right, on to our final, last but not least, we'll have a presentation by Ryan Wheeler from NDOT on the Downtown Access Project. Thank you and welcome.
Put the slides up. Put the slides up. Hello, Chairman McCurdy and members of the board. My name is Ryan Wheeler with the Nevada Department of Transportation.
And I'm Debbie Bonet.
And we are here to give you a presentation about the Downtown Access Project. And our main purpose in doing so is really just to drive awareness, to give you a little bit of history of how we've tried to integrate with the community to drive that awareness, and also some additional things that we're looking to do to continue to engage with the community. So we have about 8 to 10 minutes. I'll introduce the project. Debbie Bonet has been our community liaison, and I'll turn the time over to her, and she's going to talk about our community engagement with the neighborhoods there. So we're going to do just a project overview. We'll cover community engagement and go next steps. We have quite a few slides, but we'll go through them really quick. All of this information is on our website at ndotdap.com, so n.downtownaccessproject.com. The project is on US 95, and the majority of the improvements is east of I-15 to Eastern Avenue. Now, it does show us going west of I-15, but as you know, we just built Project Neon over there, and the reason why we show it going from I-15 to the west to Rancho is to connect the HOV lanes on the west side of I-15 to proposed HOV lanes as part of our new project. So why are we doing this project? I probably don't really need to tell you that. If you've driven it, you probably understand that there's those horrible bumps, and we're on old bridges that were built in 1968 and 1980, and those bridges are getting old. And that's the main purpose and need of that project. Secondary is, back in 1968 and 1980, those bridges worked great. The on and off ramps operated well. But you take the growth of the valley over 40, 50 years, and now there's backups in both directions as far as 3 miles plus in each direction. Why do we get those backups? It's because of those closely spaced ramps, right? In the northbound direction, you have the Casino Center on-ramp coming onto the freeway, and within 500 feet, you have all the freeway traffic trying to get on I-15 southbound, and that merge that happens right there is really unsafe, and it causes traffic to back up all the way south of Charleston. In the northbound direction, you have your I-15 ramps come on, and within a quarter mile, if you don't merge in, you're going into downtown Las Vegas. And so part of this project will fix those issues that are out there today. So we're going to fix the ramp spacing. We're going to increase capacity. We're going to add 2 lanes in each direction. We're adding additional access. We're going to add a HOV interchange at City Parkway and one at Maryland Parkway. We're going to enhance the bike and pedestrian movements to have that happen on both sides of the freeway. from Las Vegas Boulevard to Eastern Avenue. And then we'll beautify it, just as we did in Project Neon along I-15. We'll work with local artists and make something that the community can be proud of as far as the landscape and aesthetics along the corridor. So we're in the planning phase right now. This is a long-term project, just like Project Neon was. The planning phase will be about 3 years. Right-of-way acquisitions and design, final design will be about 4 years, and construction will probably be about 4 or 5 years as well. So during our planning phase, we have 3 alternatives that we're considering right now. We haven't chosen which one to build yet, or fully analyzed which one to build yet. So these are our 3 alternatives. We also have at the bottom the no-build alternative. What if we didn't do anything? What if we spent no money and left the freeway as it is today? That is an alternative. Alternative 1 is to actually recess the freeway. So today it's 30 feet above the air. This idea is to put it down in the ground 30 feet and have all your cross streets go over the top. And then they would stay at the existing elevation that they are today. Alternative 2 and 3 is to rebuild the freeway, but instead of being on a 1.6-mile bridge, it would be on earth and fill, except for when you cross the cross streets like Las Vegas Boulevard and Casino Street, Main Street. Alternative 2 and 3 have a little bit different alignment through the downtown area. I'll show that to you real quick. So the recess alternative, what that looks like is kind of at the bottom. So again, the freeway's depressed down into a trench. And then, like Las Vegas Boulevard would go over the top of that. In the middle there is the main lines of the freeway. Those little earthen plugs on both sides is the ramps to and from the freeway to access like Las Vegas Boulevard, the cross street. And then the outside cars on the very end are in what we have a collector distributor road to transfer traffic to the like Casino Center and Las Vegas Boulevard more efficiently. The recessed freeway has the biggest footprint. It's the widest footprint, so it would require the most amount, it would have the more impact on homes and businesses. North and south alternative, it's built on earth and fill, as it's shown down below, except for when you cross a street, then it would be on a bridge. The difference between the north and south is shown in the upper graphic. In blue is the north, and in yellow is the south. So in blue, through the downtown area, they're a little bit different. From Las Vegas Boulevard to about Main Street, or the UPRR tracks, they're a little bit different. But going to the east, to Eastern, they're the same. And also towards the Spaghetti Bowl as well. So the yellow, the south alternative swings south through this area, and it tries to avoid the fire department and the city facilities just south of Bonanza right there. So it ends up impacting a little bit of the Main Street Station parking garage and also the Zappos parking garage. The north alternative tries to avoid those garages, but by doing so, it then impacts the City of Las Vegas fire station as well as some of the city facilities there. And we've been working with Joey Paskey from City of Las Vegas and many staff from City of Las Vegas, and we've been talking about okay, all right, well, if this alternative impacts those facilities, where do they get relocated? And we're working with them that they would stay within the existing neighborhoods, and that could happen. So let's see, I'm going to turn the time over to Debbie for community engagement, and we'll kind of bounce back and forth on 1 or 2 slides here, but I'm going to let her carry you home.
All right, as I get started here, I do just want to acknowledge a very key member of our team. She was here but had to run to another event. So Erica Aviles has been a critical part of this team, assisting us with multicultural outreach. And so for the last couple of years, see if I can hit the right button. For about the last 2.5 years, we've had extensive grassroots outreach to the area businesses and residents. So we've really tried to meet the community where they are and bring the information to them. We've had over 90 stakeholder meetings to date. That includes everyone from downtown casinos to the Buddhist temple on 14th Street. We also have a website, as Ryan mentioned. We have a hotline, an email. We have social media. I encourage you all to go follow us. I'm trying to grow the following. It's a bit of a slow process. So I encourage you to follow us on social media as well. It's important to note here that every communication we do is in both English and Spanish to make sure we're effectively reaching everyone. So to date, we've had 7 specific outreach campaigns. I'm only going to highlight a couple of these in the interest of time, but we've had 2 public meetings, various surveys, some focus groups that were conducted last year, and most recently some polling. They were phone surveys asking people what they thought about the project as well. So first I want to touch base on the proposed street closures campaign. So in 2020, we had a public meeting, and during the public meeting, we included information about these potential street closures. As Ryan mentioned, because the freeway would no longer be on an elevated bridge, it makes keeping all those smaller cross streets open more of a challenge. During that public meeting, we only received 5 comments on this topic. And because of that, we knew we didn't hit the mark, right? There have to be more than 5 people that care about these street closures. So in spring of 2021, we set out on a campaign. We worked really closely with the city of Las Vegas to physically close these streets for 3 weeks. So we had signs out in the streets for a total of 5 weeks, but for 3 of those weeks, we actually closed 8 streets. All of the streets marked in red here and in blue were closed for 3 weeks. So we intentionally forced them to reroute to drive feedback to a survey that we were conducting. The survey was online. They could call the hotline. There was signage in the street that drove them to the survey. But we also had project ambassadors on the street. So we spent at least an hour on each of these streets talking to people as they were being detoured, as they were walking by, to really understand how they used the street, how they felt about the potential closure. As a result of this outreach effort, combined with some additional engineering traffic analysis, we are now only proposing to close 3 or 4 streets instead of the 8 or 9 that we started with. So today we are currently proposing to close just at the freeway. Sometimes there's confusion what we mean by we're closing a street. It would just be closed right at the freeway. So today we're proposing to close 8th, 14th, and 16th in all 3 of the alternatives that Ryan mentioned. 19th Street is an additional closure in the recess just because of the grade of the freeway dropping below ground level.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask, when you say close, are you saying permanently close, or are you saying close during construction?
We are saying permanently closed.
Okay, so this is why the whole SNEC board was created. So
yes.
I'm glad that you guys are here now in advance of these issues becoming public after the fact. I don't have the benefit of all these maps in front of me, so I will request a briefing from NDOT to my official staff so that I can see the maps in person and ask additional questions. But anytime we're talking about permanently closing off streets, whether it's in historic West Side to downtown or within downtown, I think there needs to be robust public awareness and communication well in advance of any decision being made.
Absolutely. We completely agree with you. And NDOT took the lessons from F Street, and that's why we conducted this street closures campaign. But we would be happy to sit down with you, Congressman, or any other member of the board to go through all of the details and answer any of your questions.
And I'll just add real quick, this is Ryan Wheeler with NDOT, that Debbie mentioned that our first public information meeting, we only had 5 comments on this. Well, after we were on the streets and closing the streets, obviously we got a lot more comments. We got 450 comments, which we really valued that input, and that led to a lot of our decisions to change this. We also got input from police and fire and how they use some of those routes as well to make sure that we weren't cutting off critical access. So I appreciate the input from City of Las Vegas on that as well. And that community engagement and back and forth between NDOT has led us to where we're at today. So we appreciate that, and Congressman Horsford, like Debbie said, we'll set up a separate meeting.
Yeah, it's just oftentimes the people who are directly impacted aren't the ones surveyed, and that's the challenge. I'm glad to know Erica and others are part of your engagement, and yeah, about 5 people may not complete an initial survey, but that's because they're busy living their lives, not aware that they're going to be impacted by road closures. So what is the timeline for those final decisions being made? And beyond I think you said something at the beginning that you need this for ramp capacity. So what's warranting the need to close these roads to begin with, I guess is my question.
Yeah, so the timing for the decision, to answer your first question, is about 6 to 12 months. And then the decision to close the streets is based on some things that Debbie mentioned before, which is one, the public feedback, and then also the volume of traffic that is used on some of these streets. Some of them is actually quite low, and we went out and surveyed both vehicle traffic, pedestrian traffic, and bike traffic. And then also the complexity of maintaining the freeway where it's going to be not built on a bridge, a continuous bridge like it is today, versus smaller separate bridges, one after the other. So that's kind of the main reasons, Congressman Horsford, and we could go over that with you. We'll meet with you separately as well. We can go into a little bit more depth on some studies that were done, and we did some census tract info. We also did some engineering of what's called origin and destination to find out how people travel on those streets as well. So we did a whole bunch of scientific research outside of just communicating with the public as well. But that's what led us, those 3 or 4 things led us to change from 8 to 9 streets down to the current proposed closures, which is 3 or 4.
One final question, and it's my understanding, I believe it's under Title VI of the Federal Transportation Act around disparate impact to communities of color, underserved communities. So where is that in this process? Are there communities that fall under that category that are protected under federal law?
Yes, 100% there are. And we're working through that on the mitigations of how NDOT can mitigate those impacts. And that's why we're here in front of the SNEC board. That's why we're out in the community, is to understand what are the mitigations that would benefit the community and those that are underserved. We don't recognize it's low income. And so we're working through that right now. In fact, as one of our surveys in our public information meeting, we asked what are some community enhancements that the people would like to see. And we had a list of 10, but then we also left it open for them to provide their individual feedback. And I'll just give you one instance, Congressman Horsford, that in our recent public information in January and February, we had a local stand up and represent herself, and she said, please don't put in a park. She said, I don't feel safe taking my 2 young kids to a park. If you're going to do something for the kids, have it be something indoors. And so we appreciate that type of feedback. And that's why we're here today, also to seek more feedback. How do those underserved people feel comfortable coming to talk to state employees? And that's why we have Erica Villas here and others to try and communicate better.
Any follow-up, Congressman?
Thank you.
Okay, and I'm sure like this could also be along the lines of the Justice 40 initiative that this administration has around the 40% of the infrastructure going towards benefiting disadvantaged communities. So that may be something we'll take a look at as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, just a few more slides here. So next up in our outreach campaigns, we conducted an environmental justice survey, given the fact that this community is an environmental justice community. So this survey was conducted last summer. As part of the survey, we knocked on more than 1,300 doors. So in that map in the lower right, all of the doors inside the orange area, we physically knocked on every single door. And we either conducted the survey with them if they were willing, we left a door hanger if they didn't answer, or if they did answer and didn't want to conduct the survey, we just asked them to call us or visit the website to take the survey. Ryan just mentioned this, but as part of the recent public meeting, we did ask the community that is going to be impacted, what kind of enhancements would you like to see? And these are the 10 options that were provided, and these are the enhancements that they selected. The top 5 are shown there on the left. So mature trees and shades, street lights, street design for the safety of all users, sidewalks and trail improvements, and public art. I just wanted to include this note on the right here. In the polling that I mentioned that was just conducted a few months ago, we also tested how people felt about some of the enhancements, including mitigations around helping the homeless community. And they tested homeless shelters, and that won by a landslide. We all know there's a challenge around the homeless community in this area, and so that's definitely on our radar as well.
I think we only have 1 or 2 more slides. Just this is where we're at in the process, and this is the environmental process. The environmental process will complete in about another year, year and a half. We need to determine that preferred alternative, and that should take another 6 months or so. After a preferred alternative is identified, we'll go back to the community and with a report to say, here's how we came to the conclusion of what the preferred alternative is. We'll have a public hearing so the public can then engage and say, I don't like your decision. Why did you make this? And we can have that back and forth or whatever the case is. And then it moves forward onto a final EIS, and we anticipate that'll be about a year and a half out. After the environmental is done, then we go into that other phase, which is final design and right-of-way acquisition, which is 4 or 5 years or so. And then after that phase, we would start construction. So we're quite a ways out, but now's the time to really engage and hear that feedback to make sure we represent the community well.
So over the last couple of years, most of our outreach has been in the time of COVID. And so we're really excited now that we can kind of move on to the next phase and really become more a part of the community and be more present on a regular basis. And so this is a list of what we're looking at for the next phase of community outreach. We really want to develop more community partnerships and have project ambassadors. We do have a list of 25 residents that have agreed to be a part of our Citizens Advisory Committee, but we would also like community leaders to be part of our project ambassador team to really help us make sure we're hearing the voice of the community so we can respond accordingly. Also, early right-of-way support. People get concerned, right, when you talk about taking their home, and rightfully so. And so we want to make sure that the people who have the potential of being impacted have a chance to have all of their questions answered, regardless of their availability, regardless of which language they speak. We want to make sure they have the chance to understand the process and what's going on with the project. And also, you know, we're excited to have this board involved as well. We've talked to Councilman Creer quite a few times, and we've seen Commissioner McCurdy at the Housing Authority Board meetings a few times, but we're really excited to have this board involved as well and expand our reach in terms of additional outreach partners to make sure we're reaching the different cultural communities of the project. With that, we would answer any other questions that you might have.
All right, like you're all good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I look forward to working with you. Thank you for all the work you're doing. All right, we are now on item 12. Are there any items that the committee thinks should be addressed at the next meeting? We've jotted down a few. Thinking about a presentation from Workforce Connections, being that we're talking about all these new opportunities, especially with the city of Las Vegas doing what they're doing. Maybe an opportunity to leverage some of the resources that Workforce Connection has and be made available to the community.
Karen Schnock, for the record, Chair. There was a suggestion that we have as one of the items of prioritizing of the projects in the SEDS that you would like to focus on as one of the discussion units.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Make a note of that as well. And possibly a presentation by the RTC. I know there's a lot happening over there.
I don't know if it's going to happen anytime. Probably give us some
Mr. Chairman, can we add
We'll wait for the RTC.
Report on the EDA tourism UNLV grant submission and the component that relates to historic West Side?
Yes, we can do that as well. And I'll work with you, Karen, on that. Okay. Is there anything else?
Yeah, I think if we can, Chair, something from NAOP on, they are moving in the space around the industrial inventory, water, and I just learned today that there's a whole septic conversation that I think is important because I think it determines what kind of growth folks should be engaging in.
All right. All right, good. Okay, we'll now move to item 13. This is the second time set aside for citizens' participation. If you have something you wish to say, please come forward at this time. You will be granted 2 minutes. We'll do 2 minutes. State your name for the record.
My name is Tashika Lawson. I'm with Historic Westside Revitalization. I wanted to make some comments regarding the community garden going over at James Gay. I really think it's important for us to ask the question of why we're asking the developers first of what they want from this garden instead of actually talking to the community. We've got people who don't know that this is something that's going to be coming into the community. We attended public meetings in this area, one at the Housing Authority, when we specifically asked if the MGM was going to be prioritized to getting the food over the actual people who live there. Is there going to be an existing open PO? And we were told no. When it comes to the actual steering committee, we know that the steering committee is not talking to this, is not hearing what's happening in the stakeholder meetings. So they're not having the informed, they're not being able to be informed on what the direction that the stakeholders want to go. And that is something that we know. We actually had somebody who reached out to our organization who wanted to be able to engage from a place of actual equity. And they were completely broadsided by what was actually being going on in the steering committee versus what's happening in the stakeholders committee. To the actual effect of the commitment when we're talking about the 30% for this neighborhood, we're actually hearing that this neighborhood is being told that 30% of the jobs are going to actually be hired out of 89106 or out of the North Las Vegas zip codes as well. Sorry, I'll write the rest online. Thanks.
Thank you so much. All right. Seeing one more person coming, maybe two. Please state your name for the record and welcome.
I'm on Soul City Wi-Fi. I would just like to know how can we get on the agenda for Soul City Wi-Fi? They probably get some funds to help us get Wi-Fi through the distressed community.
We don't go back and forth during this time, but we did hear your request, and we will have Karen reach out. So typically, we don't go back and forth on public comment. Thank you, and we hear you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Catherine Duncan. I just had a couple of comments, and thank you for all convening this important board. If I could just suggest that the very first project we undertake is to create a fund just for the West Side. So we would create a Historic West Side Improvement Fund, and all of the entities would participate in that fund. Then we have some money to work with. We've asked each jurisdiction to put a piece of the ARP funds into the Historic West Side, because it seems that no matter how much resources are earmarked for the West Side, it never seems to get there. That's been our historical challenge. The funds never get to the West Side. If they do, we don't see the results. So if we had a fund, and we're asking for a $1 billion fund to be created, because we believe that there's that much stuff that needs to be done. And we could also use that bonding program that they have, that they want to bond for businesses. We could bond that $1 billion fund with your bond fund from the city. So I'd like to see us really concentrate on getting some money first. And then the next thing is to have a virtual community action planning exercise, so all of these projects can come into one digital space. We need to really look at what we already have in the West Side. Once you've built all of these wonderful things that you propose, what will the West Side look after that? And then what else do we need? So we have a Harrison House Justice 40 initiative that's designed to do just that, so that we can invite all the entities, all the projects to come in and plan with and engage, not just get our feedback, but have true community engagement where the people who actually live and do business in the neighborhood are driving the development. So I thank you very much.
Thank you so much. All right, hearing and seeing no one else, this meeting is adjourned.
Leaving the meeting.